This is Inside the Locker Room, where football isn't just a game, it's a war zone. Every take, unfiltered. Every prediction, ruthless. From Sunday battles to primetime legends. We break down the matchups, the mind games, and the moments that define champions. Fantasy, film, trash talk, all inside the locker room. So if you came for smoke, you're in the fire now.
We are back with another episode of Inside the Locker Room. This is episode 34, and it's me and Ben today. Make sure you check out me and Michael's HBCU video coming up after this tonight. You don't want to miss that. And Adam, make sure you check out his shorts. He's in Belize right now, but he will be back on the show next week. But look, Ben, I told you we were kind of on a tight schedule, but we had a good week of wild card games. I mean, a good week. In my opinion, I think every game was good aside from like the last two games. But I want to start with the Panthers and the Rams. Panthers almost put off the upset, and a lot of us had the Rams as favorites. Not favorites, but a team to go to the championship and the Super Bowl. A lot of people have the NFC West. Those teams are going to Super Bowls, and the fact that the Panthers were able to almost beat the Rams, and they could have beat the Rams, it goes to show a lot. But Ben, what are your thoughts on this game?
I mean, yeah, we saw the first playoff game in Carolina in a long time, and the bank was ready for it. I mean, you saw like how electric it was at first, and just out the game in general. But I loved what I saw from Bryce Young, to be honest with you. I mean, it was put in a big spot against Matthew Stafford again, and he delivered. I believe he had a rushing touchdown as well. So big props to Bryce Young, even though, the Panthers couldn't get it done ultimately. But, on the Rams side of things, Matthew Stafford had, another Matthew Stafford game, as I would say, because he threw for over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. So, I don't know. I feel like we can always kind of expect like a 2-touchdown, 250-yard passing kind of stat line from Matthew Stafford, but it's gonna get real interesting this weekend because we got the Rams playing the Bears this time. So we'll get into a little bit of that later. But yeah, that first game that we had against the Rams and Panthers, it came down to a field goal only. The Rams only won by a field goal. So it was a good way to start out the wild card weekend. And then we just was talking about the Bears. The Bears actually took down Green Bay in Soldier Field.
Called it.
And Deuce called it. I was hesitant a little bit to, put away the Packers. I might be a little, going home for my boy Jordan Love, but I think the Packers and the Bears, their rivalry is just getting, better and better as time goes on. Deuce, did you see Caleb Williams with the cheese grater after the game, yo? Like, that was insane.
I said this. The Packers, they played a good game. They played a good game. But I feel like the reason why the Packers lost this game is just because their defense hasn't been the same since midseason. And we kind of saw that in evidence when Caleb Williams came back and beat Green Bay a couple of weeks ago in the regular season. So, just my logic coming into this season, and not this season, but the playoffs is it's the same scenario again. Chicago's at home. Green Bay has they have no Micah. The defense has not been playing the same that it was since midseason. The Bears offense and Ben Johnson looks lightning. It's been looking like that all season. So I think it was pretty evident to me. I had the Bears winning. Now I will say this: it was a close game, and the Packers could have put off a win with the late seconds. I know Jalen Reed had that drop, but look, stuff happens. Packers will bounce back next year. The NFC North. One thing about that division, it's a good division. Only division that finished everybody over 500. Only division, and it may not be the best division, but it's right there behind the NFC West. But one thing I do want to say about this Panthers Rams game is this will be talked about all offseason. Last offseason, we said, look, Bryce Young just needs to develop. He needs weapons. He got his weapons. He's starting to develop. And what happened? You almost beat Matthew Stafford and the Rams. And look, they had it late. If it wasn't for that late touchdown, they had it. They could have closed the game. So this is my thing. The Panthers, you're building on the right track. So from here on, like next season and offseason, you take the same, you keep taking the same approach in the offseason. Go get Bryce Young some more weapon. Continue to bolster up that defense. Continue to resign and structure guys and tackle in the draft. The draft is key. You got to tackle. That's where you find gems. And then for the Rams, they play the Bears this week. I honestly right now I'm still 50-50 on the game. I'm leaning towards Chicago right now a little bit more, only due to the fact of how I saw, the Rams play last week. Not to say any knockoff on Carolina, but I'm just saying how the Rams had those mishaps in, towards the end of the game. I feel like that just that gives me the case to take Chicago a little bit over the Rams right now. I'm still 50-50. I need to do a little bit more research and, breaking it down, but it's going to be a pretty good matchup. I see it being pretty close. One score game, honestly. If LA gets out the gate hot though with Puka and that offense, Chicago is going to have to, Chicago has to come ready. The one thing about the NFC this year is every team in the playoffs, it has a good track record for being there. So you can't really like say I can, take my foot off the gas a little bit, especially not with the Rams. They may not win the division, but they were in the top. They were in first place for a really good long time. But Ben, what are your thoughts on this Bears Rams game?
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned like how the Rams played at the end of that Panthers game, and we used that as an example with the previous time they matched up, like you just said. But with this Bears Rams game this weekend, the I feel like the weather is going to play a crazy role in this game, and we saw it. Last game, of course, that they just played in Chicago. The weather was very cold, obviously. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how Matt Stafford performs in this this coldy game. I know he can do it. He played in Detroit for almost all of his career for over a decade. So that's not really a question. But I feel like it's interesting to note that in his previous 9 games in sub 40 temperatures, he's 1-8. So that's a little interesting tidbit right there. But I wouldn't run with that because this is Matthew Stafford at the end of
And
the day.
I'm
And in
and
my
I'm thinking
opinion, I think.
you
Go ahead.
the Rams can pop off any day. You don't Puka Nuku could go for 150 yards any given Sunday or Saturday. So that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. You just can't count the Rams right now. And honestly, if you're a football fan and you're leaning towards the Bears, I would say, look, you keep the Rams in the back because it can be a very much close game. It can go one way or the other.
Yeah, I think what's really going to come down to, and I feel like this is like the main thing I'll say about this Rams Bears game, is the experience. I said this in the beginning when we were talking about the playoffs with experience. I think Sean McVay, him already winning a Super Bowl, he's been in the playoffs almost every year that he's coached the team. So that's going to play a huge role. It's only Ben Johnson's first year paired up with Caleb Williams, and they've already made crazy progress. And the city of Chicago has made a lot of progress on building that culture that they have. But yeah, I just think this is going to come down to experience. And honestly, give me the Rams in Chicago.
Yeah, and then look, also make sure you tune into our weekly pick 'em. Those are out. Those will be out this Friday or Saturday. But another game I want to talk about is this Bills Jacksonville game.
Hmm.
It came down to the last possession. Honestly, the last possession. And it was a really good game. I had the Jags winning. But from the beginning of the game, Jackson just had too many inconsistencies right off the gate. And I just feel like, um, look, I'll say this to anybody, disrespecting Trevor Lawrence, um, saying, he's not a top 10 QB. Look, he may have threw that pick on the last play of the game, but you cannot take away from what he did all season. All season. And honestly,
He
going
could
into
be
next
in contention for like most comeback player of the year, even. Yeah.
yes. And I honestly look, you next season you get Travis Hunter back. That's big. And you can go in the draft, you can go in free agency. But Trevor Lawrence, right now I think Jacksonville and Houston are poised for success in the AFC South. But anyways, back to the game. Yeah, I just feel like Jacksonville, Buffalo, they got the lead. They got the lead and they just carried away with the lead to the end of the game. And when I feel like when Jacksonville had the opportunity, mishap, tip ball, interception, the game is over. But if that doesn't happen, honestly, I think the Jaguars go down there and kick it and go to overtime.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, what are your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, it was unfortunate, like the way the season ended for Jacksonville, especially nobody had Jacksonville being this good this year. I mean, I didn't. I don't know. I feel like Liam Cohen, him being his first year, I feel like nobody really gave them the benefit of the doubt. But now that we see how this team looks, at the end of the season, we can confidently say that next year they're going to bounce back even more. So Jacksonville should be very, proud of their team and what they've accomplished this year. And also for the Brian Thomas Jr. fans out there, it's only his second year. So you're going to be getting him back next year, and Travis Etienne and a plethora of other, weapons for Trevor Lawrence. So I
Jacoby
think the
Myers,
Jaguars'
Travis
future is
Etienne,
very bright. And
mm-hmm.
like you said, they were doing all of this without their first round pick. And that's the point we keep on honing in on, is because first round draft picks, especially, the one that they traded up for, usually those players make a huge difference. So add Travis Hunter to this squad next year, and he's going to be playing both DB and wide receiver. So we're going to be seeing that more again next year.
And for Buffalo, honestly, Josh Allen, this is the year that it is wide open to go win a Super Bowl. Honestly, I think I'm gonna say this right now. It is time to start having conversations about Josh Allen if he cannot win a Super Bowl this year, because the AFC is wide open. You got what you call it? The Patriots, the Broncos, the Texans, but let's be real, Buffalo can beat those teams. If I'm Buffalo and I'm playing not Buffalo, if I'm Josh Allen, going forward through the rest of his playoffs, and Josh Allen already has the hardest road to the championship in my eyes. But Josh Allen, I'm not gonna say your legacy is on the line, but like your namesake and your name value is on the line if you cannot win a Super Bowl this year, or at least reach the Super Bowl. And eventually Josh Allen's going to start having talks like how Dak Prescott gets, because he can't get
and
past
Joe Burrow now too.
Yeah. So Joe Burrow, and like you can even say, Lamar for not getting to the Super Bowl. So that's what I'm saying. Josh Allen this year is wide open. If I'm him, I'm doing everything in my power to get to the Super Bowl, because that is not a talk that you want to have. And yes, Josh Allen, I still think he's a top 5 quarterback. Next year, he just, this year compared to other teams, the weapons is increasingly low, except for James Cook. James Cook, lights out, been playing like the best running back in the league this year.
Facts.
So I give that to him. But look, where is Josh Allen? Josh Allen doing this without receivers. He had Diggs.
Yeah, he had a rushing touchdown last game too.
Yeah, so I mean, Josh Allen, honestly, what I've seen is Josh Allen. Look, you got to put this team on your back, and you got to get them to the Super Bowl. You got to get them to the Super Bowl. And look, honestly, I'm not that big of a Josh Allen fan. I'm not saying I hate him or anything, but I want to see him get to the Super Bowl, because I don't like when quarterbacks who that are actually good and they just can't reach it. So that's just my little 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I think if the Bills continue their, missing at the Super Bowl over and over and over again, I feel like they would be crazy not to look at Sean McDermott first, to be quite honest, because I would think that would be the first thing to go if the Bills lose. So yeah, I guess the next game we could talk about that actually also had repercussions coaching wise after the game was the Philly San Francisco game. Guys, I was wrong on this one. 49ers, they won. They beat the Eagles. I just couldn't believe. Hold on, I'm going to say this real quick. I just couldn't believe that the championship team from last year went out like that. And sure, you could say that maybe it's, a little obvious that teams that make it to the Super Bowl or they win the Super Bowl, the year later, they're obviously going to have a fall. But to me, them losing in this bad of a way to an injured 49ers team was just, I'm going to call it like it is. It was a disgrace.
I mean, I said this. I've been telling y'all this all season, though. The Eagles, in my eyes, they don't look like a Super Bowl contending team. That offense and their offense coordinator, Petito, it's not the same as last year. You can bring a lot of players, but that play calling is completely different. And honestly, the Eagles just look mid to me. They've been looking... they haven't looked like a top 5 team in the league to me. They just look like they have a team of superstars around them, and they're just doing enough to win, and they're not doing anything out. Yes, I'm a Cowboys fan. To any Eagles fans watching this, so I am going to talk about the Eagles. But to me, honestly, it feels like the Eagles are not doing. They weren't doing anything out the blue all season. They were just winning games because of the roster. Honestly, I feel like they were winning games due to the roster, and coaching was helping teams. Stay in the game a little bit. Honestly, this next season we're gonna see changes come to Philly's offense. I doubt AJ Brown is still in Philly after this season. Saquon, I feel like his years in Philly, he got like 3 or 4 more years in Philly. But honestly, look, I said this in the comments. I would never root for Philly, and I meant it. Philly, I'm glad y'all are out the playoffs. I am glad y'all are out the playoffs. Y'all don't deserve no ring anyways. Y'all look, I'm not even congratulate y'all for last year. But this year, bro, new season. Y'all didn't win. It's back to start next year. And look, in the draft and in free agency, Jerry Jones and Brian Schottenheimer will make sure everything is straight for the Dallas Cowboys to beat the Philadelphia Eagles like we gave y'all a spanking the last time we played y'all. But Ben, look, honestly, next round, the 49ers, they got a good matchup with the Seahawks. And this is gonna be a good one because just a few weeks ago they were playing for first place. What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I'm actually gonna go back real quick to the Eagles game because I wanted to say, the repercussion that came from that game in my eyes was, Kevin Patullo ultimately being released, and Eagles fans were clamoring for that to happen,
And he's
and it
not a good
finally
play caller.
happened.
One thing I will
Yeah,
agree with Eagles fans, he is not a good play caller. Look, I've always had my opinions on Jalen Hurts. I've said he's a top 10, top better than Dak. No. But let me say this. That offense this year, the way he was calling that offense, it just it didn't help Hurts succeed. Not Hurts succeed, but that offense succeed how it did last season. It was really just, deep ball to AJ Brown, Hurts 3-yard rush, the same thing over and over. Saquon run up the middle. So last year we saw varieties in that offense. This year we
hmm
didn't. And that's how teams
yeah.
were able to predict. And that's also how the 49ers are able to predict, like you said, with the injured team, and they were able to game plan and beat the Eagles.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say about that game is like Jalen Hurts has had this is going to be his sixth new offensive coordinator potentially in Philly. So he's had a lot of different play callers. So the Eagles just need to figure this out. And I don't know. I just feel like when you call it just like a all hitch, all go route, when your season's on the line, and they got all the way down to the 20-yard line. I know you remember that. They
Mm-hmm.
went all the way down to the 20-yard line just to not do anything with it. But we'll go back to the Seattle 49ers game. I hope Seattle blows the doors off of San Francisco. But word has it that Brock Purdy has never lost in Seattle. So that's going to be an interesting, kind of storyline to it. But I think Sam Darnold gets his first playoff win here. I think the Seahawks, they continue to run the ball what they've been doing all season, and they beat San Francisco a couple weeks ago with ease. So I think they do it again.
And I look, the 12th man is going to be rocking on when they play. I'm gonna say this. I think Sam Darnold gets to his first conference championship. You mentioned that the 49ers, they were injured. Seattle is your rival. They know how to beat you. It don't matter if you injured or not. And like you just
Mm,
said, they beat him a few weeks ago. Honestly, if I'm Mike McDonald, I'm coming to this game with a similar game plan, added on a new extra formations, plays, and all that stuff. And you play against what you call it, the 49ers. But like you said, Brock Purdy hasn't lost in Seattle. Like that's gonna be a huge one. But honestly, I think he gets his first loss. Seattle that stadium is loud. That is one of the loudest stadiums for a reason. And I think it's going to play a factor. Also, with the fact that the 49ers are injured and compared to the Seahawks on injury reports, it's not looking good. But look, hey, I just said we're rivals. I just said they're rivals. So it can go 49ers way as well. So not to just hop too much on the Seahawks side of the things, but if
mm,
you got to give the 49ers, some credit where it's due. They can also come in and beat this Seahawks team. 49ers are a good team. They did what they did this season with the injured roster, mind you that. And at some time they were in first place for a little bit. So I would also want y'all to keep that in mind. And they did that without Brock Purdy for a little bit. They had Mac Jones at quarterback. So that just tells you the system can work and win games.
yeah, it's crazy that the last three out of the four teams in the NFC are NFC West teams.
Yeah.
It's a powerhouse division, and I know Adam's been loving what he's been seeing from Nick Emmanwori and all the new players on defense and just everybody on the defensive side of the ball. So I think the only way the Seahawks lose this game is if somehow, I mean, maybe not somehow, but honestly, the only reason that they would lose this game would be if Sam Darnold would have another Sam Darnold playoff game. But I think he overcomes that, and I think he gets over the hurdle and gets the
As
Seahawks to the NFC Championship.
as long as he doesn't have a repeat of last year, what he did with the Vikings in the first round, I think the
They
Seahawks
should
are
be
going to
good.
be.
Yeah.
I think the Seahawks will be good. And one more game I do want to talk about to close out wild card weekend. We
hmm
pretty much know about the Patriots and the Chargers, but I want to talk about this Houston and Pittsburgh game and what this means
Oh
for
man.
Pittsburgh going forward because Mike Tomlin just stepped down. Is Aaron Rodgers even going to be the quarterback in Pittsburgh next year? Pittsburgh, honestly, if I'm Pittsburgh right now, Pittsburgh needs to retool that team. If they're old, that defense is old. That offense, honestly, I wouldn't have my wide receiver one as DK Metcalf just off of this season alone. I maybe have him as a wide receiver too, but the Steelers organization has to do a lot. And I think this game against the Texans it needs to be a wake up call. Like, you can't just keep getting in the playoffs and losing in the wild card. It doesn't get you anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Mike Tomlin and the Steelers part ways, but I mean, did they really part ways, or did they just not want a team to just straight out hire Tomlin after this offseason? And I'll get into a little bit of that later, and could talk a little head coaching vacancies too if you want. But yeah, this Houston game for the Steelers, I had Houston winning, so I got that right. The defense came out huge. They got their Aaron Rodgers multiple times, and Will Anderson in that defense just ate again. Aaron Rodgers was just having trouble finding receivers yet again, and that defense just swallowed them up. So, I mean, it was pretty sad that Aaron Rodgers' last throw this season, maybe, if he doesn't retire, was a pick six. But, if he does retire after this season, his last throw would be in the NFL would be a pick six. So I think because of that, he comes back next year on a different team, and I don't know what team it's gonna be, but if I had to take an early guess, I would say the Vikings. He pulls a Brett Favre and he goes to the Vikings, but we'll have to see. We'll be in for another Rodgers episode this off season of where he's gonna go this time. So yeah, I think Houston going forward, their team is very, very. Houston could be a dark horse for the Super Bowl, man. If they go into New England and surprise everybody,
and I think they will. Houston has the best defense we've seen since the Legion of Boom. And the craziest part is, I was just telling my friends this a couple of weeks ago. Oh, and they said no, just because no, go watch that Houston defense in a real live game. They can run the same defensive coverage in the entire game and still lock you up. That secondary is lights out. Derek Stingley, Jalen Pietri. I can go on and on. That front four, oh my gosh. You can get away from Danielle Hunter, and then you got to worry about somebody on the right side. You got to worry about the middle. That Texans defense behind D'Amico Ryans, who also, not to me, he coached with Robert Saleh too, who is a defensive mastermind. So I just put that into perspective here. Texans defense can take them to the Super Bowl. Now, CJ Stroud, look, you've had in a little slump since your rookie year, but you can get to the Super Bowl, and I think honestly people will overlook that. A lot of people overlook that, but CJ Stroud has to play. He has to play like the defense. I hate to say the defense is winning them. The defense is winning them the game. This offense has to play better. CJ Stroud has to do more. You can talk all about the Texans defense. The Texans defense is honestly right now was winning these teams these games. But if the offense can step up and the defense can keep playing how they've been playing all season, Texans can go right down to Super Bowl.
Yeah, like I feel like that's what you were saying about the offense. I feel like that's what's holding them back, if anything. What's really going to be different for this Texans team going forward is the loss of Nico Collins. Him going down last game in Pittsburgh, I guess that was the price of them winning. But
Higgins got to step up.
Yeah,
Higgins got to step up this weekend,
and he has in the last few weeks of the season. I've liked what I've seen from Higgins. But yeah, like you mentioned, the Texans defense has just been playing lights out. They didn't even let up a touchdown to the Steelers. So they keep holding these teams to less than even 15 points. I can't even remember the last time a team scored multiple times on the Texans.
Honestly,
their defense has been that good this season.
New England, they had an easy schedule all season. This is going to be a true test for them. Now, what I will say this, New England got home field advantage on their side due to them being in first place. So it's all gonna matter how does that affect it's all gonna matter how does that affect the Texans this week. Now if the Texans can calm through the storm and beat New England, hey, but honestly I feel like the winner of this game goes to Super Bowl. It's just a strong feeling. The Broncos, they're like a 30% chance for me right now, but these two teams are my favorites in the AFC to go to championship. But
I agree with that.
Do you have anything else before we basically just close this out, Ben?
Yeah, I want to talk a little Dante Moore real quick. I saw that earlier he decided to stay at Oregon after Riola transferred to Oregon, so I guess he's going to be sitting behind. Is that how you pronounce his last name?
Dylan Raiola just made the
Yeah.
dumbest move to go to Oregon and sit behind Dante Moore for a year. Now, maybe Dylan Raiola goes back to he transfers to a different school. Or maybe he didn't know Dante Moore, because a lot of people had Dante Moore entering the draft. A lot of people,
Yeah.
but the way he
It was a
played in
shock
that
to
playoff
everybody.
game, the way he played in that playoff game last week, honestly, I think he stays. Ben, I was telling you this. Dante Moore might just stay just due to how bad that loss was and his draft stock falling. This is honestly, I feel like in Dylan Raiola's shoes, he should have just waited for Moore's decision. But just what are your thoughts about Dante Moore?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the New York Jets have the second pick in the draft this year, so everybody was looking at that pick and saying, "Oh, Dante Moore is going to the Jets," but ultimately he's not. Most likely, of course, he ultimately turned down $50 million, whether you like it or not. These second or just first round draft picks in general, they get paid a lot of money, obviously. So he had to take a lot of things into consideration. But you just mentioned the playoff game against Indiana; they got smoked, and he fumbled the ball multiple times, threw picks. It was just awful. So I think it was the right decision for Dante Moore to stay, take another year at Oregon, develop more. Because think about it like this: if the Jets were to select Dante Moore, if Dante's Moore not ready for the Jets, what makes you think the Jets are going to be ready for Dante Moore? I mean, either way you put it, it
It's
just wasn't going to work. So I'm
if Dante
glad
Moore
that the
goes.
Jets dodged that bullet, because they've shown it in the past. No matter what young quarterback they draft, it does not matter. Everything they've done in the past hasn't worked for them. So I'm glad that they ultimately dodged a bullet. And I'll close out the pod like this: the New York Jets, they need to stack picks for this year still, and they have all the draft picks for 2027. Build a foundation and look for a quarterback next year. Or if you're lucky enough, maybe try to trade for Joe Burrow. But that's kind of a fantasy at this point. But
I mean, I'm gonna say this
Deuce,
really.
any other
I'm
thoughts?
I'm gonna just say this really quick. If Dante Moore goes to the Jets, I think it's a lose-lose situation for both teams, for both parties. Look, honestly, no hate to the Jets, but I just feel like the Jets at developing quarterbacks, it doesn't go their way. Honestly, I wouldn't keep that Joe
They
Burrow one
can't
out
do
the
it.
back. Honestly, I wouldn't keep the Joe Burrow one out of the back of your head, because look, there's been talks about Chase leaving. So and Joe Burrow also possibly getting show. I wouldn't like keep it out the back of my head. But my thing is just with the Jets, we've seen in the past how they do with drafting Zach Wilson, for his instance. Honestly, how the Jets looked last season, I would say we draft another important piece. Then next year in a stronger draft class, we go and take a quarterback. Because if you go out there and you say, look, we obviously know Mendoza going to the Raiders, but if we say, look, we got, I don't even know who's all in the draft and on the board right now, but Dante Moore is on the clock. Honestly, me personally, I wouldn't take it. One, because how he played in the playoff game, and two, just off the history of the Jets developing QBs. But that's just my final take for it. But
Yeah,
just
the Jets are very, very, very far from competing. So that's why no matter what quarterback is behind that offensive line right now,
Jets just gotta build.
I
They
don't
they
think
need
I
like
don't think
two
it's
years
gonna
to
work.
build. Jets just need like
Yeah,
2 years to build. And I feel like the issue with the Jets is like 2-3 years ago, they just tried to splurge and just go get players like after they got Rodgers. And I think
they
that
got
just wasn't the
Devontae
smart move.
Adams. They got. I mean, yeah,
Alan
it's
Lazard.
never
They
worked
got
out for them.
yeah, and I'm just saying the Jets need to start fresh. That's all I'm saying before I close this out. But
Yeah,
you got
and
something else?
no, I was gonna say real quick. Speaking of fresh, like we're also gonna be seeing, and we'll talk, I'm sure, next episode a lot more about this. The head coaching vacancies. We're gonna see who gets hired where. I believe Harbaugh had an interview with the Giants today. That went well, but he's gonna have more interviews still. So we're gonna see where all these coaches end up. So, Deuce, thank you for having me. It was a very, very hectic day here in Puerto Rico, but I'm so glad to be back on the show.
It's, and
I appreciate you, bro.
next week, yeah, no problem. And next week, to all of our fans watching this, next week we will have some more guests. I'm trying to get some guests on this because if you haven't noticed, Inside the Locker Room has been collabing a lot, and the cast has actually been rotating in and out. So you've been getting a lot of new faces. We know we had MJ's pod, his team on the pod last week with Ben. So look, inside the locker room right now. We are networking, and also before this one closing round, we just got to 300. So our new goal is 350.
Thank you guys.
Our new goal is 350 subscribers before, the goal ultimately is, to get right now. My main goal right now to get by April is 500. But honestly, I think we can do that. Thank y'all for all the support. Keep liking, commenting, subscribing, comment on every one of our videos. And also please share this to like 10 family members. Thank you for watching. And make sure you tune into the next episode.